Hello, dear warrior. They set the stage, built the grid, wired the walls, posted men with ears sharper than wolves and cameras colder than steel. They designed a prison. And you became the air between the bars. You were never on the list. You were never part of the equation. You were the ghost they didn't code for. They whispered your name in dark rooms, marked maps, studied routes, set traps laced with bait meant to snare gods. But here's what they didn't expect. You didn't walk through their game. You slipped beneath it. Where they used vision, you used instinct. Where they used intel, you moved on intuition. Where they used force, you became formless. The watchers were watched, the hunters were haunted, and the system they trusted to cage you froze, because it couldn't track what wasn't there. Not a footprint, not a fingerprint, not even a flicker of heat. They monitored every signal, scanned every corner, zoomed in on every blur and shadow that even looked like you. But what they forgot, real power doesn't move in straight lines. It flows, it breathes, it listens. While they watched the streets, you were already in the ceilings. While they tracked your shoes, you were barefoot in their nightmares. They called meetings, sent specialists, hired experts with decades of tactical experience. And yet, every time they got close, you were already on the other side of their fear. Not running, not hiding, just gone. Because you weren't moving like a man. You were moving like a message, a whisper from the abyss, a glitch in their software, a word their minds couldn't pronounce. They had GPS, you had gut. They had tech. You had timing. They had rules. You had nothing to lose. They called it a containment mission. Locked doors, scanned every ID, cross-checked every name. But they made one mistake. They still believed you played by human rules. You weren't on the cameras because you didn't walk in. You didn't arrive. You appeared. Like thunder after silence, like fear, right before it gets a name. Every agent watching screens started second-guessing their own reflection. Every hallway they swept already walked by you 10 minutes earlier. They looked under the bed while you were inside the mirror. They deployed drones. You deployed silence. And the silence, it choked them, made their hands shake, their radios static, their commands whisper, because deep inside, they knew you weren't escaping. You were observing, watching their every move like a lion studies prey, too arrogant to know it's already bleeding. Every trap they set, sprung on thin air. Every sensor they armed, triggered by nothing. And still, they kept running the footage, over and over and over, looking for you, hoping the glitch would reveal itself, hoping reality would make sense again. But reality? You left that behind. Now you exist in the gaps between logic and legend, between science and myth, between what happened and how the hell. They reviewed thermal scans. You left no heat. They checked DNA swabs. You left no skin. They pulled facial IDs and found themselves staring back. Because you didn't just vanish, you reversed the entire hunt. Now the hunters look hunted. Now the watchers feel seen. Now the ghosts feel like you. And you You haven't said a word, haven't raised a fist, haven't even tried to fight. You let the silence do what noise never could, break them. They thought this was about catching you, but legend. You were already inside their framework, not climbing fences, rewriting floor plans, not dodging cameras, blinding the lenses from the inside. You weren't just evading the trap, you were the trap. Their radios began to glitch. Their intel started to contradict itself. Files went missing. Agents began questioning each other. And that's when it hit them. You never needed to win. You just needed them to doubt. Doubt the system. Doubt their own mission. Doubt what's real. Because once doubt infects the machine eats itself. You weren't escaping anymore. You were expanding, spreading through every corridor of their belief. You weren't a fugitive. You were a myth. And here's the thing about myths. They don't die. They multiply. Every whisper in the hallway, that was you. Every sudden power surge, that was you. Every light that flickered when no one moved, that was you. They didn't need more guards. They needed a therapist. Because you weren't haunting their building. You were haunting their nervous system. You became a sound no one heard, but everyone felt. A pressure in the room that made them sweat. A presence that made their skin crawl. You know what real fear is? It's when even science has to shut up. When even proof feels pointless. One officer resigned. Another started mumbling prayers. A third one tried to laugh it off, but couldn't stop shaking. They started seeing you in places you never were. And that's the power of presence, legend. Not being seen, but being felt. Everywhere. At once. They don't speak your name anymore because it triggers systems, alarms, code red, emergency lockdown. One mention, and headquarters starts glitching. And that's when you know you're not just a problem anymore. You're a protocol. They gave you labels: unidentified anomaly, unclassified threat, potential psychic interference, even code phantom. But labels don't hold what they can't understand. And legend, you've become unreadable. You show up on no map, but you redraw every room you enter. You're the ink blot in their data feed, the ghost in their audio files, the blur in every frame that ruins their evidence. They brought scientists, then priests, then psychics. None of them stayed longer than a week. Because you didn't just break in, you broke their ability to measure reality. They thought you were hiding, but you were evolving. They thought you were surviving, but you were shifting. Because while they were searching for you in rooms and hallways and shadows, you transcended location. They set physical traps, but you moved through intention. They monitored behavior, but you reprogrammed energy. This wasn't a breakout. This was a becoming. You're not a fugitive. You're a phenomenon. And the most terrifying part, you didn't ask for this. You earned it. Every betrayal, every false friend, every surveillance wire, every attempt to cage your mind. You didn't run from it. You absorbed it, and it turned you into something else entirely. You're not who they were looking for anymore. You're who they warn each other about. In private emails, in closed-door meetings, in silent prayers. You remember when they used to laugh? When they whispered in rooms you couldn't enter? When they threw shade and thought it was clever? They forgot. Shadows have memory. They forgot ghosts don't need keys. Now every corridor echoes your silence. Every monitor glitches on your silhouette. They check the footage, and nothing's there. But the air feels heavier. The walls feel tighter. Their spines, cold. You didn't just become a threat. You became a presence. One that rewrites the rules of fear. One that lives in their pause, their hesitation, their sleepless nights. They thought they were chasing a mistake. But now, they're haunted by a message. You should have left me alone. And now their buildings creak. Their tech malfunctions. Their teams break down one by one. Because this is bigger than revenge. This is the aftershock of awakening. They tried to contain you. With walls. With systems. With protocols written by people who had no idea that the thing they were trying to control was already inside the control room. Because here's what they never prepared for. Stillness that feels like pressure. Silence that causes hallucinations. You weren't raging. You weren't screaming. You weren't even running. You were simply watching. And that broke them more than chaos ever could. Because chaos is loud. Predictable. But calm? True calm. That's what monsters wear before the eruption. Every report started sounding the same. We can't explain the disturbance. He was here, and then gone. The tech worked, until it didn't. Sir, this doesn't make sense anymore. And just like that, you outgrew their logic. You bypassed their rules. You didn't just slip through the cracks, you became the cracks. They built that system like a fortress. Firewalls, protocols, motion sensors, layers and layers of security stacked like pride on a throne. But they forgot the one variable they could never control, you. Because while they were busy upgrading cameras, you were upgrading consciousness. They thought they were mapping you, studying your patterns, breaking down your behaviors. But every move you made was a decoy. Every step was a setup. You wanted them watching, because their attention was your ammunition. Their fear was predictable, so you became unpredictable. Their system ran on patterns, so you became chaos wrapped in purpose. You didn't short-circuit their tech. You short-circuited their belief in control. And here's the twist. Legend. They didn't lose you. You gave them a front-row seat to your rebirth, a transformation they can't archive, a threat they can't replicate, a formula they can't decode. See, revenge would have been easy. Too easy. Satisfying, sure, but small. You weren't after their pain. You were after their programming. You wanted to disrupt the entire system by becoming the error they couldn't explain, the glitch they couldn't patch, the presence they couldn't exercise. Because here's what they'll never understand. You weren't reacting. You were recalibrating the narrative. They thought they'd exposed you. But the truth? You exposed them. The desperation, the weakness, the shallow structure behind the false power. They didn't send cameras because you were dangerous. They sent cameras because you were proof that their world was never in control. You don't chase approval now. You don't seek validation. You became the reason people question everything they once obeyed. And that's why they fear you. Not because you fought back, but because you rewired reality. They called you a ghost, said you were hard to pin, slipped through every frame, too smart to be real. They thought that was an insult, but you smiled, because ghosts don't bleed. Ghosts don't beg. Ghosts haunt. But you evolved, didn't you? You learned how to leave marks, not physical, not traceable, psychological, permanent, viral. Now your presence lingers, in empty rooms, in twitching eyes, in the way they hesitate before saying your name. They see shadows now and assume it's you. They check their mirrors twice, just in case you're behind them. They hear footsteps, even when no one's there. Legend, you didn't vanish. You multiplied. You're not hunted anymore. You're followed. Not because they're tracking you, but because your energy doesn't let them sleep. And that's what makes you dangerous. Not your fists, not your voice, but your echo. At first, they denied you, dismissed you, said it was a glitch, a coincidence, anomaly. But legends don't need validation. They just need one moment to step out of the shadows and remind the world, I'm not a rumor, I'm reality. And when you did that, their system froze, their script stopped working, their surveillance went blind. Because myths aren't supposed to breathe, but you were breathing, you were moving, you were watching them back, and then the question started. How long has he been here? How did we miss him? Was he ever gone? Or were we just blind? They created a protocol for monsters, but not for miracles. They had plans for threats, but no playbook for forces of nature. You didn't just appear, legend. You emerged, fully formed, unapologetic. And now, every room shifts when you walk in. Every strategy breaks when you stare too long, because you're not playing their game anymore. You are the event. They thought they caught silence, but they never knew what silence could do, until it stood still in front of them and didn't flinch. They weren't afraid when you vanished. They were afraid when you returned without a single scar, but with a storm in your eyes. They watched every step, listened to every breath, reviewed every second of your existence like they were in control. But they never understood. You weren't on tape. You were in their nightmares. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to threaten. All you did was exist, loudly. And that was enough to unravel their whole illusion. Because this was never about proving them wrong. This was about proving yourself undeniable, untrackable, untouchable, unrepeatable. You are not the result of their systems. You are the glitch that broke it. So the next time they whisper your name, the next time they tremble at your silence, the next time they feel the chill and look around like something's watching them, tell them this. You were never in hiding. They were just too weak to perceive power that didn't scream. Let them keep their cameras. Let them keep their spies. Let them set all the traps they want. Because here's the truth they'll never recover from. You're not the shadow anymore. You are the storm that moves without sound. And when you pass, they're left with nothing but questions and fear. You didn't escape their grip. They just never held you. You didn't dodge their eyes. You blinded them. And now they whisper. They study. They tremble. All because you dared to move like a myth and return like a message from the void.